Hi everyone, Jessica here from Paper Ink Stamp and welcome back to my channel. So today's video we're going to be taking another look at the free stamp sets you get with issue 100 of Creative Stampin'. So in the previous video when we looked at this magazine I used this top stamp set here, and this is the Crafter's Companion Nature's Garden Nativity stamp set, and today we're going to be using the Glittering Snowflakes collection. So as the name suggests, obviously this is mainly focused around the snowflakes, so that's what I'm going to be using in today's card. But you have the baubles and the Christmas tree, and then we have some really nice sentiments that we're also obviously going to add to our card. So on today's card I'm going to be focusing just on the snowflakes, and I'm going to be using all of those, and of course we're going to add one of these sentiments. But the really great thing about this particular design is that it's really easy to mass produce if you want to, you know, create all of your Christmas cards to be exactly the same, and hopefully I'm going to be able to show you kind of the easiest way of doing that. So the size card I'm going to be creating is 5x7. I've cut some oyster grey cardstock. This is by Craft Perfect. I've cut this down to 6.5 by 4.5 because this is going to be sort of the best size to really show all of these snowflakes off. So I've picked this cardstock because it was light. I didn't really want to do white, but I wanted to do silver originally, so have silver as my accent. But because this oyster grey is quite a warm colour, I'm going to pair it with gold instead. But of course you can use whatever you know, colour scheme that you want to. But again, I'm going for a really simple design and sort of colour scheme here. So let's just move our stamps to one side. So as I said, I've cut my cardstock down. This is 4.5 by 6.5. So I'm going to be using a stamping platform to stamp my design, and this is going to be the easiest way to mass produce your cards because your stamps are going to stay in there and you're literally just going to swap your cardstock out. Now, because of the size of my cardstock, it doesn't fit into my Mini Misty, as my Mini Misty is 4.5 by 6. So my cardstock is half an inch longer than my Mini Misty. But I have already tried this in my full-sized Tim Holtz stamping platform, and for some reason some of the stamps weren't stamping fully, so parts of the design wasn't actually touching the cardstock, so I just couldn't get it to work. So what I would recommend is not necessarily following how I'm gonna stamp these images, but if you have a stamping platform and say it was just a Mini Misty, either make a card that's gonna fit into here, or of course then just use a bigger stamping platform where then you can kind of follow this design. So the way I'm gonna do it today is gonna be a little bit more faff than really it needs to be. If I was making a smaller card, I would have no issues, but I really wanted to stick to the 5x7 because I just think it's going to fit all of our snowflakes on perfectly. So I'm going to use my Mini Misty. So if I just show you, you can see there that my page is overhanging. So I'm going to stamp this in two sections. So I'm going to stamp one half, then I'm going to, you know, stamp those onto my other piece of cardstock from my other card. And then basically I'm going to take it out and I'm just going to line up that other side. So again, I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing this if you are planning to do a design, and like I said, this is more just a workaround for the fact that I didn't get very good results using my full-sized stamping platform. So that's enough about that. So let's actually get into obviously stamping. So I want to take all of our snowflake stamps. So as I said, I want to get them all onto my card. The design that I'm sort of following is we're going to have a couple of snowflakes up here, and it's going to kind of cascade down this right hand side. So with my cardstock, because this is textured, it's got that weave texture to it, I've just flipped it over to use the smooth side. So you can sort of tell there's a design there, but it is much smoother. And what I'm going to do is start off in this corner, and I'm just going to lay out my snowflakes, and they're going to be coming off of the edge. So I want to have it kind of all of them coming off so it looks like it's been sort of trimmed down a little bit. And I'm going to sort of just arrange my snowflakes, but I'm not going to be going all the way across here. So I think we'll just tuck that smaller snowflake in there. So I'm just going to lay that out, and the reason that I've not put it up to this edge is because I want these ones to overhang. So now I'm going to close the door of my MISTI. Let's just move those ones out the way. So now I've got my stamps in the platform where I want them to be. Because we're going to be doing some gold heat embossing, I'm going to use my anti-static powder bag on this kind of top portion of the card, and that is then going to stop that embossing powder sticking anywhere we don't want it to. So we're just going to use that all over. Then I'm going to take my clear Simon Says Stamp embossing ink, and we're just going to ink up those stamps. And we're just going to make sure that it sort of gets that full design. So with this ink, you can kind of tip it back and forth in the light, and you will be able to kind of see where that's stamped. I'm going to give it just another stamp just to make sure that we do get the whole image stamped. So I'm happy with that, so I'm leaving my stamps where they are. Let's just move our MISTI for a moment, bring in a scrap, and we're going to use then some gold embossing powder. So let's just pour this all over our design. Tap off the excess, and you can see there by using the anti-static powder bag, we haven't got any embossing powder really where we don't want it. So if you do find that you've got any areas where it's knocked off just a little too much, then you can just add a little bit more embossing powder. So before I stamp my next one, I am going to heat set this. So I'm going to melt this just because then I don't want to lose any stickiness if then I lose some of that embossing powder. So I'm going to go ahead and heat set this now. So there is our first little bit of heat embossing. So I just think that looks so beautiful, and you've got just that really lovely sort of shiny gold against that really nice oyster grey card. What you could do is, of course, is move this design to be a little bit closer, so you could, you know, make them closer together, but I'm really happy with how this section has turned out. What I'm going to do now is do the exact same thing again for my second card. I'm going to stamp it and heat emboss it with that gold embossing powder. So there we have our two identical card fronts at the moment, so both being heat embossed and stamped exactly the same. And once you've got that design and the stamp set up in your stamping platform exactly how you want them to be, it really takes no time at all. So what I'm going to do now is pop my card front back into my stamping platform. So I've only got one snowflake stamp left, which is this big one, and I'm going to have this one just over this side. So we're going to have just a really nice kind of flow across the top. So I don't need these ones anymore, so these can go back onto the packaging. So now we're just gonna stamp this one here. So again, I'm gonna go in with my anti-static powder bag just in this area, just to be on the safe side. We're gonna ink up this one. Again, we're gonna make sure that we've got that full image, and we're just gonna stamp it a few times. And again, because this is textured card, this is going to take just an extra stamp. So because I've only got one image there to stamp, I'm literally going to really quickly just pop in my second card front, and I'm going to stamp up that one. Again, let's just bring back our scrap piece of vellum there. We're going to sprinkle on our embossing powder, and once again then I'm just going to go ahead and heat set this with my heat gun. And there is our two card fronts. We've got our snowflakes there. So again, you can use a stamping platform, but you don't have to. So you can stamp all of them in one go. I had to do mine in 2 bits, but you know, there's a multitude of options of how, you know, you would want to actually stamp this. So now I think I just want to add a sentiment to this. So the sentiment I'm going to use is enjoy the wonders of the season, and I think this is just a really nice size. So I'm going to line this back up right into the corner, and I'm going to heat emboss this as well. So like I said, this is going to be just mainly made up of stamping and then heat embossing. So but of course you can just stamp this in different colours. You don't have to do any heat embossing if that's not something that you usually do. But I'm just really going to be all about that heat embossing. So I've got my card in there, right down in the corner. I've now added my sentiment. Once again, I'm just going to use my anti-static powder bag. I'm going to stamp that with my clear ink again. Okay, I'm happy with that. And again, I'm just going to be really quick, and I'm going to do the same for my second card here. So there are my card fronts. You can see that my cardstock is quite warped, but we're going to flatten that out. That's not a problem. But again, it's just such a simple design. You don't always need to have loads of things going on with your cards. It can be more on the simple side. This is just a single layer at the moment. We'll do a little matte and layer in, or you know, a little bit of dimension maybe when we put it onto our card base, but it really doesn't have to be anything more than that. I could have come all the way down with my snowflakes, but I wonder if that's just a little too much heat embossing. I do still have on my desk the twine that I used on my previous card, and I'm just wondering whether that would add maybe just enough to add a little bit of something to it, because I do think that it needs something else going on. So I could either do a piece across the top, or I could do a piece down the side. So I think I'm going to do it across the top, to be honest, because we have got that design up there, and I like that we've got just a little bit of empty space down there, but I am going to let the tails kind of hang down a little bit. So there's the card front. So I really kind of struggled with this bow here. I do struggle with bows generally, and I mainly just blame that on being left-handed, but I'm really happy with how these kind of look. Again, you don't need to add the twine at the end. You could just keep it really as a simple design. I kind of felt like it was missing something, and I think that helps just kind of add something to that side. The last thing that I think would look really nice is I want to punch these bottom corners. So I'm just going to do those two. This is a large hole punch. This is like an X-Cut brand. I think I picked this up from the range. I've got a large and a small, so you can kind of choose how big you want them to be, but I think this works really nicely with this design. So to help straighten this out, because obviously I didn't flatten this before I put on my twine, is I am going to use some of my Big Mama foam tape here. And I'm just going to pop some pieces all over, and this is really going to help flatten this out. So for my card bases, I've got two pre-made 5x7 cards, and what I want to do with these to match in with my card panel, I'm just going to round the corners. So we're going to do the back and front. I was planning to matte and layer this with some gold mirror card, but I really think at that point it'll be kind of too much gold, I think. So I'm literally just going to pop it onto this white card base. So there is our first card. So there's my two card panels. So just to finish this off, again, I'm going to add just some Ivory Seashell Nouveau drops just around my sentiment. So these are just a tiny bit, so they're ivory, they're a little more on the kind of silvery side, but that's okay. I didn't want to do the gold again because I think it would just be kind of too much for everything that we've got on our card already. So there then is our finished card. So again, it's easy to mass produce these because of the design. It's all basically one layer. You don't have to add the twine if you don't want to, but if you want to just keep it as a single layer card, this is absolutely perfect. So I liked having around the edges. Like I said, I was going to add that gold mirror card, but I think it would just kind of be, it could be too much. It could have been perfect, it could have been just what it needed, but then at the same time it could have been just a little bit too much gold, since we do have all of that gold embossing on there. But I really love how these have come out. They're definitely a lot more on the simple side, but sometimes, you know, if you're making a lot of Christmas cards, you don't always want them to be kind of the busiest cards ever. And I think then just adding those Nuvo drops just sort of finishes that off really nicely. So there's another card using some of the stamps from issue 100 of Creative Stampin'. So we have got 2 more stamp sets left to use. So if you aren't a subscriber, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you don't miss out when I upload that next video. So there might be just sort of a few extra videos this week while I have just a little bit of free time. So yeah, be sure to hit that notification bell so you are notified when I upload a video. If you did like this video, then please give it a thumbs up. So that's all for today. Thanks very much for watching and happy crafting.